Hello, this is Budgety App tutorial, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to use the app. So what you can see on my screen right now is the app dashboard. Once you sign up, this is exactly how your dashboard will look like. So you can see the onboarding steps. All you need to do to get started is to start your trial. So I'm going to start my trial here now. So now, as you've seen, I'm currently subscribed to the premium yearly, and the boundary of the subscription plan has turned yellow, meaning that my subscription was successful. Up next, we'll go ahead and add an account. So on Budgety, you can either sync with your financial institution or add your account manually. And in this video, we're going to go ahead to sync with our institution. Right now, the aggregator we use on Budgety is Played, and in the coming months, we will be adding more aggregator partners. So let's go ahead and sync. You click on Continue as Guest, select any institution of your choice. We'll just go with RBC here, and here you enter your username and password. When you're done authorizing or giving authorization to Played to sync your bank account, you would then see a list of all your accounts in the financial institution. For the sake of this tutorial, I would click on Select All. You can decide to select specific accounts if it's not all your accounts that you want connected. We'll click on Continue. After that, we'll click on Finish without saving. And here we go, our account sync is successful. You should typically give Budgety about 10 to 20 minutes to have all your transactions. So we can see here that the transactions are still loading. It takes a bit to actually load. Typically, when you sync an account on Budgety, we go as far back as a year of your past transactions. So you have to wait for that to happen. And after that, as you can see here, this is the accounts module on Budgety, and you can see that RBC has been synced. Typically, when you sign up to Budgety, you have you're given one manual account called Cash at Hand that you can decide to delete if you want to, but this gives you a chance to add transactions manually for free and explore the app even before starting your trial if you wish. But we'll definitely advise that you start your trial because there's a 7-day free trial, and you then have access to all the premium features. While the transactions are loading, right, as we can see here, the transactions are coming in little by little. I'm just going to explain to you some of the things on the dashboard. So over here is your net worth. Typically you would see a graph. Once the transactions load completely, your graph would appear, and you would also see your net worth. Net worth here is typically calculated as assets minus liability. Up next, you see just a few of your recent transactions, and you can always click on View All to see all your transactions, or just click on the transaction module button, which is this. So back to the dashboard. After your transactions, you see this graph. This graph is pretty much a comparison graph where you can see this month versus last month. You want to see your spending, or if you want to compare your spending from this month versus last month, you will see that here. You can also compare with by week on week or by year on year, right? So of course transactions are still coming in, so we're just going to wait a bit for it. Of course, here we can see that we have no budget because we haven't created any budget. So next, we are now going to go ahead and create a budget. So this is what the budget page looks like when you haven't created any budget. So we'll go ahead and create a budget. So you can either create an inflow budget or an expense budget. We typically advise that you create both budgets, because then you can see how much you have left to budget when you have both types of budget created. So let's go ahead and create an inflow budget. This is typically for paychecks or income that you envision coming in within a period of time. So for the sake of this video, we're going to create a budget for paycheck. So let's say paycheck, right? And then we put a paycheck of $1,000. And this paycheck, let's assume it comes in bi-weekly, right? And then we click on view summary, and you can see all of that and income budget added. So as you can see here, this is what you have left to budget. It has shown here that you have 2,000 left to budget. Now it's showing left 2,000 because the calculation for left to budget is strictly on a monthly basis. It's not calculated on a bi-weekly basis or on a weekly basis. So any expenses or inflow budgets that you create will be converted to monthly before the left to budget is being calculated. And so since the paycheck that was added here is on a bi-weekly basis, it simply multiplied it by 2, right, which makes it 2,000. So now we're going to go ahead and create an expense budget, right? Let's just say a budget for food. So you can also search for any budget you're looking for here, call it food, right? And let's just say groceries, right? Done. You can give it a name. For the sake of this video, we'll leave it as groceries, and limit here is how much you intend to spend on groceries, and we're just going to make that, let's say, $60, and also put that on a bi-weekly basis, for example. So you also have the option of getting notified when your budget reaches whatever amount. So what this typically means is if you spend 75% of $60, you would actually get an email letting you know that you have actually spend 75% of your budget. So we're just going to leave it at 75%. It's just a nice reminder to keep you in check, or to make you know that, let you know that you're getting close to reaching your budget. So you view summary and you go ahead and add budget. So as you can see here, what's left to budget is 1,880, and that is because it 120 has been deducted. For reference, remember that the grocery budget of $60 was created to be bi-weekly, right? Bi-weekly. So, and it has multiplied it by 2 and has given you left to budget for the month of January, right? So 2,000 minus 120 leaves you with 1,880. So it even says here that left to budget is based on all budgets converted to monthly amounts. Custom budgets only count if their dates fall within the same month. So again, for budgets, the frequency for expense budgets is weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and you can create a custom budget of your own. Maybe it's an expense that you don't typically have on a regular basis, but it's going to happen that month. You can create a custom budget. For example, if you're traveling and you envision that you'll be spending quite a bit on your travel, you can actually create an expense budget called travel. So we can actually give that a try. Let's see. You can include the categories that you think you would be spending money on your travel. So first of all, we can start with, let's say, Let's do travel. We can start with maybe air travel, hotel lodging, and let's say vacation packages. um so one thing to notice on Budgety, you can create both single category budgets and multi-category budgets. For example, the budgets we have created in the past were all single category budgets, like a budget for food, a budget for paycheck. But you can create one budget and have many categories under it, like food, rent, grocery, etc. And that is what we're doing here because it's useful in this particular scenario where we're budgeting for a future travel. So we're just going to name the budget holiday travel. And let's just say $3,000 was the entire package cost. And then the custom price, right? This is where it comes in handy. So let's just say we plan to travel, January 1st, right? And then we intend to spend exactly 2 weeks. So we can see January 15th is when this budget ends, right? So again, we have where you can get notified when the budget reaches 75%. It can be 50, it can be 25. Feel free to set it at any amount of your choice. So we're going to just view summary, see the categories, and then add budgets. Okay, so of course you can see here now that our budget is in minus. We're just going to go back. You can edit, right, and increase the paycheck number. We can put, say, 3,000 for example, again just for the sake of this tutorial. And you can see we're back to having quite an amount left to budget, right? 3,000 income bi-weekly comes up to 6,000, and that is why you see 6,000 here. And 3,120 is the budget that comes from the travel budget and the food budget we had created. And you remember it says custom budgets only count if their dates fall within the same month, and our travel budget actually fall within the month of January, and that is why it was able to count here. For example, if the end date of our travel was dated in February, it wouldn't be calculated here. So let's just give it a try and see. These are holiday travel. Let's edit it, right? Let's say we intend to come back on the 28th of February, for example, right? And save, right? You can see that it doesn't count on the January budget anymore. Yeah, so you can always edit, as we've seen. You can always delete your budget. You can always view your budget. So as you spend, you will definitely see your budget's reading, right? So let's quickly add a transaction that has a paycheck category, right? So just going to go to transactions here. As you can see, the transactions have actually come in all the way to 14th of February. So that's a whole year, right? So I'm just going to create a credit transaction, right, and call it paycheck, which tallies with the budget that we just created, right? Let's call that paycheck. Let's say 3,000, right? We just got that, and let's just call it something, anything. It can be salary, for example, and receiving account. So on Budgety, you cannot add transactions to synced accounts. That's because those transactions would come in anyway, so you can only add manual transactions to manual accounts. So this is why it's showing only this cash at hand account, which, like I mentioned before, is the default account that's given to you when you sign up. So cash at hand and view summary, right? So now I've created a transaction called salary. Let's go all the way to our budget. You can see that the inflow budget that we created has reflected. It shows here amount earned 3,000, and this green line shows that it's pretty much completed but still within the budget created. So you can scroll down to see more information. It shows here 100% reached. If you click on it, you would then see the transactions that fall under that budget. Now we're going to do the same again. Let's do something for groceries. We set that to 60, but in this case we're going to put it to a number less than 60, right? So I'm going to create a transaction, call it groceries. We're just going to put $20, for example. The transaction dates being today. Description, let's just say no frills, right? Just then sending accounts, cash at hand, and then view summary, right? So now we're going to go to budget just to see how, and you can see here that it has reflected that the amount spent is $20. If you click on the drop down, it shows here 33% reached already, and when you click on it, it shows the transactions that fall under that particular budget created. One important thing to note is how the frequency is calculated. For weekly budgets, they refresh exactly 7 days after creation. So if you create a budget that's weekly on the 1st, it will refresh on the 8th. For bi-weekly, Budgety runs a split month module. So what that means is that if you create a budget between the 1st and 15th of a month, it would refresh on the 16th. And if you create a budget between the 16th or the 30th or 31st of a month, it will refresh on the 1st of the next month, basically. So depending on when you create a bi-weekly budget within a month, whether it's between the 1st and the 15th, or between the 16th and the end of that month, whether it's 30th or 31st. And monthly is pretty much simple, right? If you create a budget on the 1st of a certain month, it would refresh on the 1st of the next month. If you create a budget on the 21st of a certain month, it would refresh on the 21st of the next month. Very important to note. And so that's pretty much it with on budget. I hope you understand. So up next, we're actually going to go to cash flow. So you can see your cash flow here just beside the live chat. So you can click the cash flow from here. So what you can see here, January 2026, which is this month, you would see your inflow, your expenses, and your savings. So the way savings is calculated here is pretty much inflow minus expenses in that month. And what you can now see is on the cash flow, it's pretty much a summary of how you spent money within a period of time. In this case, January, you can see that we have paycheck, right? The category name is paycheck. For expenses, we've spent money on groceries, right? And if you want to see for the breakdown of the transactions you carried out that fall under paycheck, just click on paycheck, and then you see the total amount spent, the average transaction, which is typically just all the transactions added divided by the number of transactions, right? And then you also see all the transactions listed that fall under the paycheck category. The only reason why you're not seeing the other transactions from the accounts that we synced is because those are fake accounts for the sake of this tutorial. You can also see by merchant. You can see how much you're spending by merchant. The reason why the transactions from the synced accounts are not showing here is because no transactions have occurred in the month of January. So I'm just going to filter to December 2025, and now you can see all the transactions, the summary of the transactions carried out in the month of December. So for Inflow, you can see either by category or merchant. This is what category looks like. Basically, it shows the summary of all your transactions by category, while the merchant shows a summary of all your transactions by merchant. So for example, let's go to expenses. We can see KFC here as a merchant. It's likely that under category, the transactions for KFC are categorized as fast food. So let's just quickly click on one of these summaries here. So I'm going to click on KFC, and what you can see here is the total amount I spent on KFC in December, which shows $500. And the average transaction is pretty much the total amount spent on this particular merchant, KFC, divided by the number of transactions. And you can see that in the month of December, just one transaction was carried out, which is what we can see here. So if there was more than one, if there was 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll see all the transactions here. So back to the cash flow page. This is typically how the cash flow works on Budgety. So now we will go to transactions. Okay, in some cases, you may want to add manual transactions for accounts that are not synced, right? And we have done that quite a bit in this tutorial, but I'm just going to break down every other part of the adding transaction process that we did not touch while creating the last ones. So while creating a manual transaction, one of the things that's important to note is this section that says, will this be repeated? You could create a manual transaction that you want to be created on a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly basis. Similar to budgets, any transaction that's supposed to repeat weekly would pretty much repeat every 7 days, and bi-weekly is actually quite different from what we have in custom with budgets. Bi-weekly transactions repeat after every 14 days, and monthly is pretty much simple. It repeats every month, right? You cannot create a transaction whose next date is still in the past. Every transaction that's to be repeated can only be repeated in the future. Up next is this question that asks, are you transferring to an existing account? This is important for manual transactions. If you have 2 manual accounts where you are actually transferring from or transferring to, so it helps to prevent double entry. So if this is a transfer account, you can then state which account are you transferring from, and then the amount will also be deducted from that account, and the transaction will also show in that account as either a credit transaction. So for example, this is a debit. So let's just see this work in real time, right? Right now we have just one manual account, but I'm just going to go ahead now and add a second manual account, right? I'll just click on the plus sign here and I will click on add manual account and enter name. Just enter second account just for reminder, right? Then the type of account, whether cash, credit, savings, checking. I'm just going to say checking. So we can decide to add a balance here as well. Let's say the balance I have in this account is 1200, right? And you can decide to add a description here if you want, but we won't be doing so in this video. So let's just say add account. So you can see the second account added here, right, in the list of manual accounts. So let's just go back to transactions and let's add a credit transaction, right? Let's just call it's a transfer transaction. We can just say set the category as transfer, and let's put the amount 200 in there. Let's put today's date, or we can put the previous dates. Let's say 28th. Click on OK. We can still describe it as transfer. So now it's asking what's the receiving account. So we're going to say the cash at hand is the receiving account, meaning I probably just withdrew the cash from my account and decided to have the cash in hand. So this question here, transferring from an existing account, we'll toggle it to yes. And then we have to now decide what account are we transferring from. So we're going to say the second account, right? And click on view summary, add transaction. So this transaction happened on the 28th of December, right? We backdated it, and immediately here you can see two transactions. One is a credit transaction and the other is a debit transaction. Mind you, we created just one transaction, which was the credit transaction, right? And this is it. It was the transfer to cash at hand, and it shows here from the second account, right? But we can also see this debit transaction here. It shows the account from second account to cash at hand. So that takes away double entry. This is just in the case where you have two manual accounts that you are transferring from. One last thing to add is that you can always see transactions in a specific account by going to accounts and selecting the accounts of interest. So for example, let's click on this. You can see all the transactions in that specific account, right? Click on view all. These transactions are just from a specific account. So if you just want to see transactions of a specific account, you can definitely just do that. So far we have actually followed all the steps. We have started our trial, we've added accounts, we've added budget and transactions. So we can decide to have this not shown to us again. So this is what it looks like, right? So now we can see the budget on the dashboard, the first three on the dashboard. You can click on view all to see more budgets if you have more than 3 created, right? So there are more features on Budgety. So you click on these three lines, right? They're called hamburger menu, and we have categories. So here is where you can create your own categories. So these are all categories that came with the app. These are all default categories, right? So, but you can decide to add either a main category or a subcategory. So what you can see here are all main categories: financial, healthcare, pets, work, employment, etc. They are all main categories under expenses. We also have main categories under inflow. We can see here government, investments, employment, etc. So under these main categories, so here what you can see, for example, pets here is a main category. You can see grooming, insurance. All these are all subcategories, and you can decide to add a subcategory under any existing or default categories that came with the app. So for example, we can add a new subcategory under pets, and let's just call it pet food. Right? Done. And if you check, you can see pet food, and you see this custom, which shows that this category was created for you. You can also go ahead and create a main category, and you do that by clicking the plus sign here. So let's create a main category. Let's call it, we can call this category winter. For every main category created, you have to create at least one subcategory to be able to create a main category successfully. So the next thing to do, you select type. In this case, it's an expense category, right? Click on done, and then we add a subcategory because, like I mentioned, it's important. So for winter, we can just put here winter clothes, right? You can also add more than one category. We can also put here winter tires, for example, right? You can always delete a category that you have created at any point. So if you want to delete, for example, winter tires, just click on this delete button and it deletes, right? But we're just going to add it right back. You can see here that it shows the category created by you, by me, custom category winter, and when you click on the drop down, it shows the subcategories created, and I can always delete this if I want to, but right now I don't, so I would say no. So that is the add category feature on Budgety. The next is rules. So it says here we haven't created any rule, and the importance of the rule feature is when you sync your transactions, sometimes they don't come in categorized the way you want them to. So let's just go back to transactions, for example. Let's take a look at, let's say, Textra Inc. This transaction was automatically categorized as entertainment, and so let's say maybe we don't want this. We want a situation where any transaction that comes in, we want from Textra Inc., we want the category to be changed to let's say telephone, right? So you go to rules, create a rule, and let's say, so what you can see here is if the transaction matches a certain description or a certain amount, category, merchant, then you can either change the category or rename the merchant. So in this case, right, we're going to say if the description, and when you click on description, right, it asks you match description, you say yes. Okay, and then the next thing you ask is whether you want the transaction to exactly match what you're about to enter, or if it simply contains it. So I'm going to put in here texture, right, and I'm going to leave it at contains. And what that means is any transaction description that contains texture, right, it should make whatever changes that I'm about to set. If I choose exactly matches, right, it's going to limit it to texture. For contains, it can be texture. The description can have texture Inc. It can have texture.com. It can have texture plus any other thing, right? And it would still apply the rule I'm about to set. But if I click on exactly matches, if the transaction does has anything aside texture, the rule will not apply. So we're just going to say contains, and I'll click on save here. Then I'm just going to go quickly to what I want to change it to, which is update category. And then it asks, do you want to update just the income, the inflow category, or the expense category? Because you might get an inflow transaction that has texture in the description, and an outflow or expense category that has texture in the description. So in this case, we just want to create a rule for a debit transaction which typically contains an expense category. So we're going to click on expense category here, and then so I'm clicking telephone here, and then I'll click on save, right? And you are being asked if you only want to match the outflow category and not the inflow category. And yes, we only want to match the outflow category in this case. And as you can see, it's showing us here that there are 12 existing transactions that actually meet the criteria that we have set. So you can click on preview to see them. As you can see, this transaction on the 25th has texture in it. There's so many transactions with texture Inc. as their description, right? So you have the option to either apply to existing transactions or apply to only future transactions. So if you click this and click on create rule, it will apply to the existing transactions. But if you untoggle, it would not apply to these existing transactions but only future transactions. So for this case, we're going to apply to these transactions and future transactions. So going to create rule. So of course we have to give it a name. It's better, or it's easier to just give the name something that you can remember, because periodically you would have to come to rules to update newer transactions that have come in using the same rule. Here is what I mean. I'm just going to create a manual transaction now with texture in the description. So I'm going to go to transaction now, and I would create an expense transaction, right? I'm just going to give it any category at this point. We're going to add a description called texture. Right? So as you can see, I did not put the right category for this transaction, right? We want every transaction that contains texture in the description to have a category called telephone. So we're going to go to rules now, and we'll click on the three dots here and click on edit. And now it's searching through the transaction, and you can see here that it shows apply to one transaction. So we click on preview here. You can see that this is pretty much the transaction I just created now. You can see $10 Textra. It was an expense or a debit transaction. So if I toggle this and I click on save rule, it will actually apply to this transaction I just created. So with rules, you would have to periodically go through your rules, edit them, and update for newer transactions that have come in. And so we're in transactions now. If I click on Textra, that's the transaction I just created. You can see that the category has changed to telephone. So that's pretty much how the rule feature works. And up next, we're going to go to squad. So there's a brief explanation of what squad is, right? Your squad is where you team up with the people who matter, whether family, friends, or anyone you manage your money with. You can share accounts, budgets, and keep up with everyone in sync effortlessly. So pretty much, for example, if you want to add your spouse, your partner, or a friend to have the same view of certain parts of your finances, this is where you would come to. So we're just going to click on create squad now, and we're going to enter a squad name. So for the sake of this tutorial, we're just going to name it family, right? And here you can now go ahead and add the emails of those that you want to add, and they will definitely also receive an email eventually when you have completed the adding process. So support at mybudgety.com, which you can always send an email to if you face any issues, or you can just reach out via the live chats, which is faster. So we're just going to click on save and continue, and then you'll be prompted to show or select which account you want them to see. So at Budgety, you can decide what you want whoever you're inviting to see. If you in this case, or in our case, if you click here, it means that they can see all your RBC accounts, right? If you click here, it means they can see all your Budgety accounts. But you can also decide to drop down and select specific accounts in your financial institutions. Let's say, for example, you don't want them to see all the many accounts you have under one institution. You can also select which specific accounts you want them to see. You click on save and continue, and then you can also do so for budgets. So if you have certain budgets that you want to share with them, you select that, and then you can now click on preview squad. So here you get to see the summary of what you're about to do, the name of the squad, the people that you're adding, the accounts that you decide to share, the budget you decide to share, and you create squad. So once you do this, the person on the other end whose email you have added would receive an email of the invite, and they can either accept or decline. And on your end, you can always delete a squad. You can always edit the permission. You can always go back and edit. You can always edit the permission by clicking on this edit button here. You can delete whoever you want to delete from a squad. So for example, I'm just going to delete support at mybudgety.com, and you can see it has deleted, right? Well, of course, to create a squad you have to have at least one email, right? So I'm just going to add it back. You can always edit what you want the people in your squad to see, right? And you can also create multiple squads. Like I mentioned, maybe there's a view you want to share with your spouse or your partner, and it's a different view you want to share with your friend, or it's a different view you want to share with your advisor. You can do all of that. And yeah, that's pretty much what Squad is about. So now we're just going to go to the last but not the least, the very best, which is Buddy AI. Buddy AI is simply like talking to an accountability partner or a friend that knows about your finances, that you can ask questions regarding financial matters, etc. We can just read what it says here. Buddy AI, your financial accountability partner. Think of me as your friendly guide to making sense of your money. No stress, no judgment. Got a question about your budget, transactions, or finance in general? Just ask. I've got your back. I'm here to help. So what's on your mind? Well, so let's start charts. Now I'm just going to ask, how much have I spent this month? So you see, it shows here that this month I have spent $30, $20 on groceries, and $10 on telephone. So if you go to the transactions, it tallies, right? This is $10 I just spent on Tectra. This is $20 I just spent on No Frills. So going back to Buddy AI, you can even ask it to do things for you, like create a budget. We actually do have a feature coming up literally in a couple weeks where our AI would be able to create budgets for you, and it would be able to add it to your budget list. Right now, Buddy AI creates the budget for you, and also, but you still have to maybe copy and paste and then create it on your budget. But there's a feature coming soon where it creates the budget for you literally in a few weeks. So for this right now, it's asking some more questions, before it can create a budget for you. So it's trying to take into consideration what you want to meet your needs, etc. So you can see here is asking what category or purpose is the budget for, what is your budget amount, budget period, would you like a spending notification. So the truth is, the more transactions you have on Budgety, the easier it is for Buddy AI to give you more specific and tailored or personalized answers, because there's more context. If not, you would keep getting questions, more and more questions, so that it gives you more and more accurate answers. We can ask it, oh, how am I doing with my current budget? As you can see, it has listed what my current budgets are and has gone ahead to let me know how I'm doing on it. It says my inflows and outflows are both on track. No category has exceeded its limits. I have plenty of room left. So basically, I don't have to fear about my current budget at the moment. So that is pretty much what Buddy AI does, right? And yeah, that's pretty much the end of this tutorial. Hope you find it useful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to support via live chat. And thank you.